27. Just 27. That's how old she was when one of the most powerful and singular voices in music was silenced forever. But before it all came to that tragic end, her rise to the top was, well, it was meteoric. Absolutely unbelievable.
And when she was at the absolute peak of her powers, man, she was just collecting all the biggest awards in music. I mean, we're talking Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Best New Artist, a total sweep that really cemented her as this global icon. But, and this is a big but, all that incredible success was being shadowed by a really deep personal struggle.
The official cause of death? Alcohol poisoning. It's just a stark, devastating end. And it leaves us with this massive question, right? How did one of the most incredible talents of her generation end up this way? To really get it, we've got to go back, way back, to the beginning.
So today, we're diving into the story of Amy Winehouse. And it's a story that's really defined by this collision, you know? A clash between a talent you see maybe once in a generation, and this just profound personal tragedy. So to really understand the artist she became, you have to start at the beginning. Long before all the global fame and the crazy headlines, there was just a girl from London who had this deep, genuine love for jazz.
I mean, her childhood was just steeped in music. She grew up in a Jewish family in London, and her dad was always singing Frank Sinatra songs around the house. So that love for the classics, it was baked in from the start. That passion eventually led her to the National Youth Jazz Orchestra, and that's where she really started to sharpen her craft, to hone that incredible voice. By 2002, boom, she's got a deal with Island Records, and just 1 year later, the world gets to meet her through her debut album, Frank. And let me tell you, Frank was a statement right out of the gate. It wasn't just, a hit album, it was a critical masterpiece. People loved it for these cool, super sharp jazz-influenced lyrics. It got her nominated for 2 Brit Awards, and, maybe most importantly, she won the prestigious Ivor Novello Award for Stronger Than Me. So from the very beginning, it was clear, Amy Winehouse was the real deal, a totally unique and powerful new voice.
But look, as big as Frank was, her next album, that's what was going to launch her into the stratosphere. It took her from being this British critical darling to a straight-up global phenomenon.
And what's so interesting about this next chapter is where she found her inspiration. For album number 2, she looked to the past. She started drawing really heavily from the sound and the style of those 1960s girl groups, like the Ronettes. And this wasn't just her sampling a sound. No, she was channeling an entire era. And that influence, it translated perfectly into her public image. That signature beehive hairdo, the super dramatic Cleopatra makeup, it was all a shout out to her idols. It wasn't just a look, it was a whole persona. It became this instantly recognizable, totally unforgettable part of who she was as an artist.
So when Back to Black finally dropped in 2006, the result was just explosive. It became this massive international sensation and went on to become one of the best-selling albums of all time. It was just this perfect mix of vintage soul with modern, brutally honest songwriting.
And it wasn't just the fans. The critics were just as blown away. Time magazine even named Rehab the best song of 2007. And this quote from them, it just nails it. They said she was mouthy, funny, sultry, and quite possibly crazy. And that was it, right? It was that raw, totally unapologetic originality that you just couldn't ignore.
And all of that originality, all that talent, it all came together on one single, historic night. At the Grammys, the biggest award show in music, she took home 5 awards. 5!
Yeah, that night in 2008 was just a total sweep. We're talking Best New Artist, Record of the Year, and Song of the Year for Rehab, and Best Pop Vocal Album for Back to Black. Get this, she became the first British woman ever to win 5 Grammys in one night. I mean, that's how you cement your place in music history.
But that amazing night, it was also a turning point. You see, that same global spotlight that shined on her genius was about to get way too hot. Her public life started to shift from fame to infamy, as her personal struggles became these public spectacles you just couldn't look away from.
Just think about this number for a second. Over 20 million copies of Back to Black sold around the world. That kind of success, it puts you under this intense, relentless microscope. Every single move you make, every mistake, it's all magnified for the entire world to see. And pretty soon the cracks started to show, in public. There's this quote from a critic at the Birmingham Mail from late 2007, and it's just heartbreaking. Right in the middle of her biggest tour, he describes seeing a
Supremely talented artist reduced to tears, stumbling around the stage. The contrast between that massive success and this public unraveling, it was just so jarring. It was like she was fighting a war on two fronts. On the inside, her career was getting overshadowed by substance abuse, by addiction, and a lot of that was tied to her really turbulent marriage. And then, on the outside, she was a constant target for the paparazzi. It was this relentless hounding that got so bad she eventually had to get a court order against them for harassment. Can you imagine?
And it all just came to a head in June 2011. There was this now infamous performance in Belgrade, Serbia, that was just a chaotic disaster. She was booed off the stage, apparently too intoxicated to even perform. And that led to her entire 12-day European tour being canceled, just like that. It was such a sad and very public sign that things were at a breaking point.
This picture you're seeing is from one of her last runs of shows in Brazil, which was just a few months before that. Now, her final public appearance was actually a surprise guest spot in London, but really, it was that tour cancellation that felt like the end of her public career. Just a little over a month after that show in Belgrade, she was gone.
But her story doesn't just end there, with the tragedy. It is so important to also focus on what she left behind, and that is a powerful, totally timeless body of work that still influences and inspires artists today. So, what was it that made her so special? Well, it all starts with that voice, right? A deep, incredibly expressive contralto that sounded like it held a lifetime of pain and wisdom. And the way she blended soul, R&B, and jazz, it was something completely her own. The BBC called her the preeminent vocal talent of her generation. And just recently, Rolling Stone put her on their list of the 200 greatest singers of all time. For sure. And her work is still celebrated long after she's gone. Her final recording, a really beautiful duet of body and soul with the legend Tony Bennett, came out right after her death. Then in 2015, that incredible Oscar-winning documentary, Amy, shared her story with a whole new generation. And get this, in 2025, her masterpiece, Back to Black, is set to be preserved in the U.S. National Recording Registry. That's how you know it's culturally important, forever.
So, it all leaves us with this one big question. She was such a complex person, you know? This mix of pure, raw genius and just profound tragedy. As time goes on, how will history remember Amy Winehouse? Is it going to be for the chaos that defined her last few years? Or will it be for the timeless, untouchable music that really defined a generation?